The UN points to the climate emergency as a key driver of global hunger. The COVID-19 pandemic that has compounded food insecurity, and the Russian invasion of Ukraine that is amplifying these pre-existing conditions.
Let's be clear, there is no effective solution to the food crisis without reintegrating Ukraine's food production, as well as the food and fertilizer produced by Russia and Belarus, into world markets despite the war. Russia must permit the safe and secure export of grain stored in Ukrainian ports. Alternative transportation routes can be explored, even if we know that by itself they will not be enough to solve the problem. And Russian food and fertilizers must have unrestricted access to world markets without indirect impediments.
Guterres explained that he's in intense contacts with all sides to the conflict, in addition to Turkey, the European Union and the United States, for a packaged deal to be reached on bringing those regional supplies back to market. As Washington announced $215 million in new emergency food assistance, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also rejecting claims that sanctions imposed against Russia had worsened the crisis, arguing that Western punitive measures had created exemptions for agricultural goods and fertilizer. He called for the creation of incentives for countries to produce more fertilizer and for farmers to maximize fertilizer efficiency.
Governments and international organizations can also come together to compel the Russian Federation to create corridors so that food and other vital supplies can safely leave Ukraine by land or by sea. There are an estimated 22 million tons of grain sitting in silos in Ukraine right now, food that could immediately go toward helping those in need if it can simply get out of the country. Second, we believe we must address the global fertilizer shortage. Consider Africa, where the cost of fertilizer has already quadrupled since the start of the pandemic and has skyrocketed further since the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
The World Food Programme, that expects to feed 150 million people this year, says 50% of the grain it buys comes from Ukraine, while operational costs from rising energy prices has already increased to over $71 million per month.
It is absolutely essential that we allow these ports to open, because this is not just about Ukraine. This is about the poorest of the poor around the world who are on the brink of starvation as we speak. So I ask President Putin, if you have any heart at all, to please open these ports. Please assure everyone concerned that the passageways will be clear so that we can feed the poorest of the poor and avert famine, as we've done in the past when nations in this room have stepped up together to the call of action to prevent catastrophe from year after year.
Excellencies, in 2015,
South Africa called for the issue to be addressed holistically, including through adhering to the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, among others.
committing to finding peaceful solutions to conflict. Armed conflict has a devastating impact on livelihoods. It disrupts food systems, causes displacement of people, and triggers food insecurity. Working towards ending conflict by prioritizing political dialogue rather than fueling conflict by creating divisions and resorting to war must be prioritized.
As the UN calls for collective action, warning that the food crisis has no respect for borders and that no country can overcome it alone. Sherman Bryceby's SABC News, New York.